The morning rush echoed through the giant workshop of racetrack motors. Mechanics hurried between workstations as a championship race car suddenly coughed, sputtered, and died. Panic spread across the garage. "The engine's gone," one mechanic shouted. Nobody seemed to know what to do. Then Jack, a quiet single father who worked in maintenance, stepped forward. Without saying much, he opened the hood and studied the engine. Within minutes, he tightened a few components, adjusted a fuel line, and restarted the car. The engine roared back to life. The entire garage stared in disbelief. "How did he do that?" someone whispered. Before anyone could celebrate, the glass doors swung open. Victoria Harper, the company's new CEO, walked in. She looked at Jack, then at the race car. "Who authorized him to touch this vehicle?" she demanded. Nobody answered. "I did what needed to be done," Jack said calmly. Victoria crossed her arms. "You're maintenance staff, not an engineer." "The car was about to miss testing," Jack replied. "I don't care," she snapped. "You ignored company protocol." The room fell silent. Then Victoria pointed toward the exit. "You're fired. Effective immediately." Gasps filled the workshop. Jack looked around at the stunned employees. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply packed his tools into an old metal box and walked away. As he reached the door, several veteran mechanics lowered their heads. They knew something the CEO didn't. Something that could change everything. Because the man she had just fired was the person who had designed the company's very first championship race car. And soon, Victoria was about to discover a secret hidden deep inside racetrack motors history. The moment Jack left the building, an uneasy silence settled over the workshop. Victoria noticed the strange looks on the mechanics' faces. "What?" she asked sharply. "Why is everyone standing around?" Nobody answered. Finally, an older engineer named Mike stepped forward. "With respect, ma'am, firing Jack may have been a mistake." Victoria frowned. A maintenance worker fixed an engine without permission. The decision stands. Mike exchanged glances with the others. "You don't understand who he is." Victoria sighed impatiently. "Then explain." Before Mike could answer, her assistant rushed into the garage holding a folder. "Ma'am, the investors are here early. They want to see the prototype race car." Victoria nodded and headed toward the design center. Minutes later, she entered the company's Hall of Champions. The walls were covered with photographs of winning race cars from the last 20 years. As she walked past the displays, something caught her attention. A framed newspaper article hung near the entrance. The headline read, "Young engineer creates the fastest race car in company history." Victoria looked closer. Her eyes widened. The man in the photo looked familiar. Very familiar. She stepped closer. Then she froze. The engineer smiling beside the championship car was Jack. The same man she had fired less than an hour ago. "No," she whispered. She quickly checked the plaque beneath the photo. It confirmed everything. Jack Turner, lead designer and founder of the original racing division. Victoria stared at the wall in disbelief. How is this possible? Just then, Mike entered the room. "I tried to tell you," he said quietly. After his wife passed away years ago, Jack stepped away from leadership. He never wanted special treatment. He stayed here because he loved the company. Victoria felt her stomach drop. But if he built the racing division, why is he working maintenance? Mike looked at the old photograph. Because he cared more about the cars than the title. For the first time that day, Victoria realized she might have made the biggest mistake of her career. And at that exact moment, a phone call arrived with even worse news. The company's newest race car had completely failed its final performance test. And the only person who knew how to fix it Engineers were gathered around the company's newest race car, their faces filled with concern. "What happened?" she demanded. The chief engineer pointed to a screen. "The engine keeps overheating. We've tried everything." "How long before the championship inspection?" "Less than 48 hours. Victoria felt the pressure building. If the car failed inspection, the company would lose a multi-million-dollar sponsorship deal. "Fix it," she ordered. "We can't," the engineer admitted. "The cooling system design is unique. Only one person truly understands it." Victoria already knew the answer. "Jack." The engineer nodded. For the next several hours, employees searched everywhere. They called his phone. No answer. They contacted former coworkers. Nothing. Meanwhile, Jack was at home, helping his young daughter with her homework at their small kitchen table. For the first time in years, he seemed completely at peace. Back at Racetrack Motors, the situation grew worse. The prototype failed another test. Then another. Investors began asking difficult questions. Rumors spread through the company. Some employees openly blamed Victoria for firing Jack. Late that evening, she sat alone in her office staring at the old newspaper article. She couldn't stop thinking about the look on Jack's face when she fired him. He hadn't been angry. He hadn't argued. He had simply walked away. A knock sounded at the door. Mike entered carrying an old storage box. "We found this in the archives." Inside were dozens of notebooks. Jack's notebooks. Victoria opened one carefully. Every page contained hand-drawn designs, calculations, and notes. But one sentence, written on the first page, caught her attention. "Build cars that people believe in. Build teams that people never want to leave." Victoria lowered the notebook. The words hit harder than she expected. Because that was exactly what she had failed to do. The next morning, disaster struck. The championship committee moved the inspection date forward by 24 hours. The company now had only one day left. As panic spread through headquarters, Victoria made a decision. She grabbed her keys and headed for the parking lot. If there was any chance of saving the company, she would have to find Jack herself. What she didn't know was that when she finally arrived at his house, she would discover a secret that explained why he had given up his career in the first place. Victoria followed the address from Jack's employee file and drove across town. She expected to find a large house owned by a former racing legend. Instead, she arrived at a small, modest home. Children's bicycles rested near the front porch. A faded pickup truck sat in the driveway. Victoria hesitated before knocking on the door. A few seconds later, it opened. Jack stood there. His expression remained calm. "Can I help you?" For a moment, Victoria struggled to find the right words. "I came to apologize." Jack looked surprised but stepped aside. Inside, the house was simple but warm. Family photos covered the walls. Victoria noticed one picture that appeared over and over again, a smiling woman standing beside Jack and a little girl. "Your wife?" Victoria asked softly. Jack nodded. "Emma." His voice grew quieter. "She passed away 11 years ago." Victoria immediately understood why the room felt so different from the fast-paced world of racing. Everything here revolved around family. Just then, a young girl ran into the room. "Dad!" She wrapped her arms around Jack. He smiled instantly. The tired look Victoria had seen at work disappeared. "This is Lily," Jack said. "My daughter." Lily waved politely. Victoria smiled back. After Lily left to finish her homework, Jack sat down. "When Emma got sick, racing stopped mattering," he explained. "The championships, the awards, the money, none of it mattered." Victoria listened carefully. "After she passed away, I promised myself one thing. "What was that?" she asked. Jack looked toward Lily's room. "That my daughter would never feel alone." The answer hit Victoria harder than any business report ever could. For years, people had assumed Jack stepped away because he lost ambition. The truth was much different. He had sacrificed his dream so his daughter wouldn't lose both parents. Victoria lowered her eyes. "I judged you without knowing anything about you." Jack gave a small smile. "It happens." She took a deep breath. "The company needs your help." Jack remained silent. "The prototype is failing," she continued. "The championship inspection is tomorrow." For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Jack stood and walked toward a shelf. He pulled out an old binder. Victoria recognized it immediately. They were the original blueprints. "The problem isn't the engine," Jack said. "What do you mean?" "The cooling system was designed to work with a specific airflow pattern." He opened a page and pointed to a sketch. "Someone changed the body design 6 months ago." Victoria's eyes widened. "That change is causing the overheating?" Jack nodded. "Every single test failure." For the first time, Victoria realized the company had been looking in the wrong place the entire time. But there was still one problem. The inspection was less than 24 hours away. And redesigning the car in time seemed impossible. Then Jack closed the binder and said something that gave Victoria hope. "Get me to the workshop." "Why?" she asked. Jack smiled. "Because I think I can save your race car." Less than an hour later, Jack walked back into Racetrack Motors. The moment employees saw him, the workshop erupted with excitement. "Jack's back." Mechanics rushed over, smiling for the first time in days. Even the engineers looked relieved. Victoria watched quietly from behind. She could already see the difference. People trusted Jack. Not because of his title. Because he had earned their respect. Jack wasted no time. He headed straight for the prototype race car. "Show me the latest test results," he said. Within minutes, screens filled with data. Engineers gathered around as Jack studied every detail. Finally, he pointed to a section of the car's body. "There." The room fell silent. "That tiny change is blocking airflow to the cooling channels." One engineer frowned. "That can't be causing all this trouble." Jack smiled. "Then let's test it." The team quickly removed the modified panel and replaced it with a temporary version based on Jack's original design. Everyone held their breath as the engine started. The race car roared to life. 5 minutes passed. No overheating. 10 minutes. Still stable. 15 minutes. Perfect. The testing room exploded with cheers. Engineers high-fived each other. Mechanics celebrated. Some couldn't believe the solution had been so simple. Victoria stood frozen. The company had spent months chasing the wrong problem. Jack solved it in less than an hour. But the biggest surprise came next. As the team prepared for the championship inspection, an investor arrived unexpectedly. He walked directly toward Jack. Then, in front of everyone, he shook his hand. "Good to see you again, partner." Victoria blinked. "Partner?" The investor laughed. "You didn't know?" The room grew quiet. "Know what?" Victoria asked. The investor looked confused. "Jack still owns a significant share of this company." Gasps filled the workshop. Victoria felt her heart sink. The man she had fired wasn't just the creator of the racing division. He was one of the company's largest shareholders. Jack looked uncomfortable as everyone stared at him. He never talked about his ownership. He never used his influence. He simply came to work every day like everyone else. Victoria realized she had made an even bigger mistake than she thought. But before she could say anything, a message arrived from the championship committee. The inspection team had arrived early. And they were bringing one final challenge that nobody expected. A challenge that could either make Racetrack Motors champions again, or destroy everything they had worked to save.